So, Rich Mitch has sent me some samples which I've been wearing all week, and I've had them for longer than that actually, but I thought this would be a good video this week to mention all of them in a Scents of the Week video. I've done a bunch of videos like this before and you can check them out in a playlist. I'll leave a link down below. But let's get into this one. That he has sent me some vintage fragrances, some discontinued ones, a couple of modern ones. Yeah, stay tuned to find out my thoughts. Hey everyone, Raj here. I hope all of you out there are doing well. So, as I said, Rich has sent me some samples. I will mention down below the fragrances that he sent to me, but I'll read them out to you now. He sent me Zaharoff Signature, Luciano Pavarotti, which is quite an interesting one. Wasn't really on my radar, so it's actually my scent of the day. Francesco Smalto For Homme, that's a discontinued one. Estee Lauder For Men, The Longing by Matriarch. I've never tried anything by Matriarch, so this was pretty cool to get my nose on one for the first time. Balenciaga For Homme and Coriolan by Guerlain. Both of those two are actually now sadly discontinued. So let's kick things off with the first one, Zaharoff. This video is not supposed to be like a full in-depth review of every single fragrance. One of them I have finished, a couple of them I've done like 3 or 4 wearings and I'm still working my way through them. But yeah, anyway, so on Monday I wore this fragrance and there is lavender, there's some resins in here, some woody elements, oud, some rose, there's vetiver as well. A few more notes. As I said, I'm not going to go fully in depth, just give you kind of my sort of initial impressions really. I've heard a lot about this fragrance. Obviously I've seen interviews with George at Zaharoff, and I think he's got a few more that have come out recently or are about to come out. So yeah, it was good to get my nose on one of his fragrances for the first time, and it's very well made. I have to say, the quality is definitely there. The blending is really, really nice. The longevity is good. It is an interesting fragrance. It comes across as kind of powdery, a little bit sweet, quite creamy, woody, very gentleman-like, but I also think a woman could definitely pull this one off. It is actually quite linear on my skin. I would have preferred a little bit more development and some of the more heavier notes that come through on my skin, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. I was just kind of expecting a more development on me. I get similarities to Tom Ford Noir, to Dior Homme Parfum, actually. I'm not saying this fragrance is exactly comparable to those two, but in that kind of powdery, slightly smoky, you know, kind of ways, but this is very much its own fragrance, I do feel. It's definitely well put together. I didn't find it like, I wasn't like blown away by this. I wasn't absolutely loving it. Maybe I need to test it in warmer weather when maybe some of the notes might come through a little bit more. Who knows? But definitely a good fragrance. I can see why a lot of people are talking about it and praising it. I wouldn't say it's a love for me, but pretty good. Luciano Pavarotti, that's right. Luciano Pavarotti, the singer, well, I think it's probably doing him a disservice just to say yes, he's a singer. He's one of the world's most famous opera performers and a legend in his own right. I didn't realize that there was a fragrance named after him. I think there's a few I've noticed in the Fragrantica database. And it's described as a woody chypre. There's all kinds of notes. You've got citruses and iris and rose, vetiver, Popanax, tonka bean, there's honey and amber. There's actually quite a lot going on in here, and this was a really, really nice surprise. It is my scent of the day, and I get like a chalky honey. It's a little bit powdery. I also get something that feels like love hearts, those violet sweets. There's a little bit of that in there as well. Green, slightly leafy. Actually, it's actually quite complex. When I really got it on my skin, there was some really nice development and was, as I said, a pretty nice surprise. And a bit of a shame that this fragrance is no longer in production. Let me know, guys, if you have tried this one. Yeah, I was actually really pleased with this one. I've got a few ml left. I'm going to definitely enjoy that one. Would I seek out a vintage bottle? Would I be on eBay like trying to track this one down? Maybe. I wouldn't say I'm in a big rush. I think there's a lot of other fragrances I would get before this one, but I would say very feels like a very novel fragrance to have in your collection. A lot of people, when they think about celebrity fragrances, you can sometimes be a bit skeptical, but now and again you will find some gems. So I think this is definitely one of those. Francesco Smalto pour homme. This is actually a fragrance that I have finished. I've got like a little, tiny amount, but I really went through this one because I enjoyed it quite a lot. An old one, no longer around, came out in 1987. Same year I was born actually, and it's described as an aromatic fougere. You got the typical notes that you would find in these types of fragrances: lavender and tarragon, rosemary. There's some patchouli in there, cedar, oak moss, obviously, leather, musk, tonka bean. This is, I just love this style of fragrance. It's so classic, it's so easy to get along with, and it is basically for me fresh. It's herbal, but smoky in that kind of smoky, grassy, mossy kind of way. Really, really classy stuff. It's a shame that this type of fragrance is no longer around, or this one specifically, but it's not to say that you couldn't get a similar smelling fragrance like this. You know, a lot of fresh aromatic fougères that are currently in the market are also very good, but yeah, I think this is one that I would maybe try and seek out a bottle, excuse me, or maybe a little mini. I really enjoyed the way it performed on my skin. It feels like a kind of classic men's aftershave. That's the vibe I got with this one. Really good. Yeah, really glad to have discovered something that honestly I wouldn't have discovered before. And so, Rich, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Estee Lauder For Men. Now this one for me was an absolute beauty. Rich actually sent me the vintage one. This one is still in production. He was saying that the current production it's not a bad fragrance, but probably like nowhere near in comparison to this vintage juice. When things open up, I actually really would want to try and get to a Estee Lauder counter, see if they still have this one, try it on skin, and maybe be tempted to purchase it if it's still good. Let's see what's in this one. 1985 release. Juniper berries, galbanum, clary sage, carnation, vetiver, oak moss, rose, sandalwood, patchouli. Yeah, this is for me spicy. It is floral in that very typical way that you'll find carnation in a lot of men's fragrances, kind of classic fragrances. It is quite rosy and sweet and fresh. There's almost a smoky feel in here, a leathery feel, quite smooth though. So refined, so beautiful, like really, really nice. It almost actually reminded me of, and I don't know exactly the name, maybe Youth Jew, because the reason I mentioned that is because I feel like my grandmother, there's something in here that reminds me of something that she wore, which probably was Youth Jew. I just can't be 100% sure. It smells like something you would wear a suit and put this fragrance on and feel very well put together. It feels something that you would go out and wear this one, and when you're going out in a very refined environment. It's gives me feelings actually of Roger Parfum's Diaghilev. Man, it's just so, I could literally just all day just have this to my nose. It performs so well on my skin, very long lasting. I'm keen to try out the current version. If you guys know that one, let me know what are the comparisons. Yeah, it would be good to hear your thoughts. The Longing by Matriarch is a fragrance that is, I think it's fair to say, very powerful and also very expensive. I had never tried anything from this house, so it was quite an interesting one to try. It may look like I haven't really used much of this, but you don't need a lot. I mean, 2 sprays from this little sample was at times almost too much for my personal taste. Notes here of plum, butter, oud, jasmine, osmanthus and honey and orange blossom, leather, amber. Man, this is filling up a room territory. I don't even need to get my nose close to this sample. Okay, so I think it's actually quite an incredible fragrance, but I can't say that I love it. When I say it's incredible, simply because of its power, the density of the ingredients, It smells like something I've never smelled before. This style of perfumery smells very different to me, not something that I'm used to. So I think all of this is a good thing, because for me, I'm just experiencing something very new from an olfactory point of view. But in terms of what I'm smelling, this butter note is so like, this fragrance is full of calories. It's very, very heavy, buttery in a pan. You can just almost imagine walking into a kitchen that's full of the scent of hot butter after cooking something. It's quite fatty, very heavy on the florals as well, giving this tropical feel. Quite intense, very intense fragrance. I wouldn't say I get any oud in this fragrance, but you know, there are so many different varieties of oud, it's always hard to say. Fruity, like an intense concentrated jam. It's all just a little bit too much for me, to be honest. Sometimes, for me anyway, I feel like you can have too much of a good thing. Maybe one spray, and then if I could like distribute it around the body. I didn't like spraying this here on the wrist, maybe a couple of swipes at the back of the neck, almost using it like an oil is probably the best way, but an interesting one for sure. Balenciaga For Homme. This one really blew me away, if I'm honest with you guys. Came out in 1990, discontinued. Cinnamon and coriander, cardamom, patchouli, cedar, cypress, honey, oak moss, labdanum, vanilla, musk. And wow, this is again quite powerful, but it does calm down later on my skin. But whoa, this is a real beauty. I think this is a fragrance that maybe was just ahead of its time. Because when I was smelling this fragrance, I was very much picking up on vibes of modern niche Arabian style fragrances. I was thinking of Serge Lutens, that came to mind, Ambre Sultan, but without the spices and the resins. This is more powdery, ambery. This is more patchouli, chocolatey patchouli. The chocolatey patchouliness reminded me a little bit of Borneo 1834. I might have got the year wrong. Another Serge Lutens fragrance. But it had I was trying to pin this one down to what exactly it was. This green, I want to say like a green mintiness. Not quite sure from looking at the note breakdown exactly. The cypress note maybe, the thyme coming together, I don't know, it kind of had a fresh green uplifting feel to it in the midst of all of this spice market, ambery, powder, heavy woody fragrance that pretty much I would say is Balenciaga For Homme. I think as more I wear it, I'll get a much better idea of what it's all about. But yeah, I mean, also I thought about fragrances like Amouage's Gold Man, Arabian Nights by Jacques Bogart, that very heavy, musky, spicy. But this fragrance actually, as it settles, it's not an overwhelming fragrance. In the opening, yeah, for some people it probably is. But as the fragrance develops, it becomes so smooth and it just gives you just gentle wafts of this wonderful ambery, almost like a L'air du Désert Américain from Tower, kind of in that category. Very, very beautiful fragrance. And you know, if Balenciaga come out with a new range of fragrances that no doubt will be in there as in like an exclusive range, and no doubt it will be like an oud based fragrance with oud in the name, they could basically just reissue this fragrance and it could be the same thing. Some people I was saying on Fragrantica, I do like to read what people are saying on Fragrantica, but also sort of have my own view as well. And a lot of people were talking about oud and how there was this article by, I think his name is Michael Edwards. Let me just do a little quick search. So there's a video online or an article called How the West Fell in Love with Oud. I still need to watch that one actually. And he was saying that apparently this is the first fragrance in the sort of Western market, you could say, that contained oud, even though it's not in the official note breakdown. So a lot of us think of YSL's M7, but if this fragrance came out today and had oud in the title, everyone would be talking about how, oh, I get the oud, you know. I think maybe it could have been in there, I can believe it. Or maybe it's a combination of all the other ingredients giving you that effect. Very interesting fragrance. The next fragrance is from Guerlain. This one is called Coriolan. This is a discontinued fragrance. 1998 it came out. There was a re-release called L'Aimé d'un Eros. I'm not sure about the pronunciation, but then they discontinued that one also. It was in the Les Parisiennes collection. Notes for this one, created by Jean-Paul Guerlain, lemon, sage, bergamot, neroli, nutmeg, coriander, fennel, oak-moss, vetiver, leather, patchouli, and benzoin. This is actually a very nice fragrance, I must say. I do quite like it. It reminds me in some ways of, not in terms of scent, but if you think of Prada Amber Pour Homme and the kind of fragrance where you would wear that, it's quite a safe fragrance maybe when you're just chilling out or you just want to go to the office and not smell of anything too crazy. Very well put together, very calming fragrance actually, and isn't one that is loud or shouts a lot. Very nicely put together. I think this one is, for me, like a woody floral musk. I feel like it reminds me of, in terms of scent, Comme des Garçons 2, although it has been a long time since I've smelled that one, and I'm not 100% sure, but it's got a powdery feel to it. If I'm honest though, guys, I haven't really formed a proper opinion in terms of what I'm smelling. It's very more general feel with this one. Maybe let's do a little fresh spray actually. I feel like spraying fragrances onto like knitwear like this, or scarves or heavy jackets, they hang on, and whoa, yeah, lovely, really, really beautiful. Actually, you know, thinking about it now, kind of, is there violets in here? There's no violet, yeah, but it kind of reminds me of a little bit of a green violety feel, kind of like what you might get in maybe a little bit of what you might get in Green Irish Tweed, but it's a very different fragrance. It's just a hint of that suddenly just came to my mind. Yeah, I'm not going to say too much more because I'm still forming my thoughts on this one, but it's so great to discover fragrances that you just can't get your hands on nowadays. So yeah, maybe I might seek out a mini, a little 4-5 ml. Would I seek out a full-size bottle for this one? I wouldn't say I was loving this one based off the 2 or 3 times I've worn it, but maybe for the sake of having something that is no longer around. And I think that's what is part of the appeal with these fragrances, having something that's rare. These fragrances, some of them that I've mentioned, are finite. Once they're gone, they're gone. You know, they'll never exist again. Whereas you think about something like a vintage painting or vintage clothing, you know, as long as they're well maintained, they can last forever, basically. Ancient artifacts, things like that you might see in museums. With fragrances, once they're gone, they are gone. So guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, it's been great interacting with everyone recently. A lot of comments coming in, so I really appreciate that. If you'd like to support what I do, I am on Buy Me a Coffee. The link is down below. Thanks a lot. I'll see you on the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye.